Today, I've got a couple topics that range from why Americans are unhappy with AI, why DLSS 5 had maybe the worst video game announcement in a decade and a half, and why some products are more special and successful than they really seem like they would be on paper. So let's start with why Americans don't like AI. So there's a decent chance you have seen someone post about this study that came out about a week ago from Pew Research that is basically like Americans aren't happy about AI. And the kind of headline metric here is asking basically, are you more excited or concerned about AI? And effectively, 50% of Americans say they are more concerned than excited. 10% say they're more excited than concerned. And 38%, or I guess 40%, we're probably rounding these numbers, about 40% say they are mixed. They're equally concerned and excited. And I think for a technology like this, that's a pretty reasonable place to be, in the middle, acknowledging there are things that can be useful about it, as well as things that are going to be problems that we now need to solve. And that's how technology generally works. But I understand that this seems like it could be a big one. And so all of these are magnified. And if you look at some of the other things, basically, more people think this is going to hurt our ability to think creatively. It might help us solve some problems, but it might also hurt our ability to do that. When we go into like spaces where, like, kind of categories where we think this tech will be helpful or not, medical care is where we think it'll be the most positive in terms of impact. That's the only category actually in this poll where people thought it would be more helpful than not. K through 12 education had the second highest positive score, but even that score was lower than the negative scores. So yeah, people pretty concerned. They think a lot of the impacts will be negative, and so that's really it. In terms of the other one I wanted to call out was people in the workplace. Basically, as of September 2025, Pew found that about 65% of Americans use AI none or not much at work, whereas 21% are using it all the time, most of the time, or some of the time. And so I would fall into the 21%, I think. That is up from 16% a year previous. So it's growing, but not hugely fast. And I would be curious what percentage of these people are doing most of their work on a computer screen. If you're doing most of your work on a computer, odds are it's more helpful. If you're using your computer, but you're also out in the world, if you're out away from a screen for a good portion of your work, odds are it's less useful for you. But yeah, these obviously are notable numbers for people who don't like AI. And again, it seems like there's quite a few of those folks. An interesting one I found also when I was on Pew's site, this is from October of last year. They actually did kind of a similar study of people around the world, so not just Americans. And the interesting thing here is that if we look at are you more concerned than excited or more excited than concerned, we actually have a slightly different mix. So there are more excited people. They're at 16% in the world in general versus 10% in the US. And are you more concerned than excited? Again, that was 50% in the US. It's 34% in the rest of the world, or across the rest of the world. So interesting that the makeup is a little different. And then they kind of break this down by that same question, but broken down by country. And you can see that the US is the most concerned of any country, and they have the fewest, or second fewest, I guess, looking at these numbers, of most excited people. So it is interesting. Like if you look at something like Japan, they have only a quarter of their population is more concerned than excited. They have a lot of people who are mixed, and then a decent chunk, looks like about 16%, who are more excited. So I think it is interesting that there's such a range of how people answer this question. Another thing that's interesting about how people answer this question is, do you trust your own country or the EU to regulate AI? And basically, people in the EU, people trust their own country the most. They trust the EU around that same number. And then there's a big drop off to how much they trust the US to do it, and even a bigger drop off for how much they trust China to do it. So just interesting to see that there's different numbers around the country. Now, I can't talk about this week in AI without talking about DLSS 5. Now, for context, I think DLSS is awesome. I am a huge fan of DLSS. I use it in every game that it's available in because I think it delivers a great value. It lets you get a game that looks at your native resolution. So for me, it's 4K, but I don't have to have my graphics card render the full traditional rasterization at 4K. It can do it at 1440p or even 1080p or even lower in some cases. And it basically uses machine learning to scale things up in real time, and you get higher frame rates at higher resolutions. And with each iteration, they've made the video quality better to the point where there's almost never an issue at this point for me on DLSS 4.5. So I think it's awesome. I turn it on all the time. Huge proponent of it. DLSS 5 is doing a little different. So this is from a video, the official announcement from NVIDIA of DLSS 5. And this is the very first thing they showed doing it. And it's a scene from the start of Resident Evil Requiem, which is where Grace, who is an FBI agent, and she is on the clock, walking through the rain, through the city, to a crime scene, which happens to be the hotel where her mother was murdered in front of her eyes. And she looks normal now, right? And when we enable DLSS 5, she looks a little different. And I do think some people have overblown it a little bit, but at the same time, it's not quite the same. It makes her look. It exaggerates the makeup and everything. Like, it makes her look like she's more dressed up than she was previously. It looks weird. And when we kind of go through the other examples, you kind of go from something that looks like a video game. I'll give you that for sure. But then it moves into something that looks more like AI slop. It looks like some AI generated face, like this guy from Hogwarts Legacy. Like, these aren't the highest quality textures or anything right now, so I totally get why there's room to improve here in the future. But when they wipe over and show his new face, tell me that's not the most AI-looking garbage you've ever seen. So I think this trailer is an atrocious announcement for this product. My take is that I think DLSS 5 and what they're trying to do with enhancing the visuals beyond what just traditional rasterization can do, I think there's something there, right? I think video game graphics are all tricks, right? Like, it's all a 2D image, but we're doing all this 3D simulation and stuff to make it look 3D and act 3D, but it's all obviously a 2D image. We use things like normal maps to pretend that there's detail that's not actually there in the polygons. There's all sorts of tricks. It's all tricks all the way down. So I'm not opposed to some sort of trick to make things look more detailed than they technically are, again, using traditional rendering techniques. And I think there could be something good here. I think if they had demoed this in a different way, they could have done better than they did here. Because what they did here was basically make this look like, there's kind of a meme of like people who will remake Mario in Unreal Engine 5 or something, and it looks very high fidelity and high quality, but like, it just looks wrong. It just looks like fan art and like kind of cringe fan art. And that's what I get from this. This is the vibe I get from this, which is just like, we have changed the art in a way that doesn't connect with people. It feels like a fan project, not like the actual intent of what was created by the artists. And so if it's in there from the beginning, if people build with this in mind, I think it can potentially deliver something interesting. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not closing myself off to that. But I think this is an all-timer in terms of terrible video game announcements because people hate this. People are really, really upset by this. And I don't blame them. I think even before I saw the reactions, I saw this video and I was like, oh no, that looks bad. So yeah, this is not good. IGN did a poll where they asked people what they thought of this. What do you think of DLSS 5? Too much slop. It's the future. I can't tell the difference. We have 79% of people with 14,000 votes in saying it's too much AI slop. And yeah, I think this looks like AI slop. So they got to lock it in and actually make this useful because that sucks. And if you want to know why people might have a bad vibe with this, in addition to AI CEOs saying that, oh, we're going to destroy all the jobs and we're going to build God. And, this is a whole new religion, basically. And you're not going to make any money after it. But I'm going to do great because I invested, right? There's a bit of a psychosis going on with the AI executives. And VC folks who are, I feel like, just live in a different world. But anyway, you have Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, reacting to people who did not like the DLSS 5 announcement, and he just said that they're wrong, that they are wrong to have that opinion, that it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome, and basically shut up. He didn't say shut up. He maybe didn't mean that, but that's effectively what he said, and so I understand why people are upset about that. And yet, if I go to the top apps on the App Store today, I took this screenshot an hour ago, NBA March Madness Live, CBS Sports, again for March Madness. But besides those, we have the same 3 apps that have been near the top for like a couple years now. ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. People are still using these apps. The chatbot interface is proving incredibly popular, incredibly useful. And it's just, this tech came up in a different era of tech, where 15 years ago, tech was seen in a much better light. It was everything they got into, they were going to improve, they were going to make the world better. And now, I feel like in the last 10 years, it's really shifted. And now we, in general, as a society, are more skeptical of them. And we've seen, when we give them this much power and this much control, things get a little crazy. And we don't like a lot of this stuff. So we're kind of greeting it with cynicism, but we're still using a lot of the tools. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch to figure out here. But yeah, interesting times, as always, it seems. But moving on, I wanted to talk briefly about this computer. This is the MacBook Neo, the product that people keep talking about, including myself. And I wanted to say, there is no reason why a lot of people are so excited about this computer. This is the worst MacBook Apple makes. It is not as fast as their higher end computers. It doesn't have as much RAM. The storage is much worse. The storage is much lower as well. And it doesn't have all the I/O that the other devices have. It doesn't have MagSafe. It has worse speakers. It has a worse trackpad. It doesn't have light-up keyboard. There's no reason to use this computer for a lot of people who already had a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro. Those are better computers technically. And yet, I find myself using this as a development device. I'm writing Swift code in this. I'm using Xcode. I am doing web development on it. I'm doing all the things I do on it. Video editing, it can do. I recorded last week's episode on this computer and edited it and published it and everything from here. You'll notice I'm not doing that this week because it was more painful than it should be. So the RAM, this performance, all those limitations got in my way. So I will be editing on the M4 Pro MacBook Pro that I have, but I totally can do it on this. But I love this little device. I like this little computer. And it's just a bunch of intangibles. I like the color of it. I like even the feet. Like the feet are actually better, I think, than the the other Macs. I think the screen is totally fine. I like the smaller size. As a MacBook Pro user, I'm not used to having such a thin computer. I know this is technically marginally thicker than the MacBook Air, but as a Pro user, this feels very thin to me. And it's just nice. It's just nice to have and it's nice to use. And so it's just interesting. And this is, incidentally, not the first time, even in the last 6 months, this has happened to Apple, because around 6 months ago, they launched the iPhone Air. And the iPhone Air, similarly, is not the best phone that they released in the fall. They released this alongside the iPhone 17 Pro, which is better in every single metric. It does cost a little bit more, and it does have a thicker body, but everything else, much better. And then the iPhone 17 even is hundreds of dollars less expensive than this, and has better specs for most everything. But this phone has drawn quite a bit of love from a good number of people, and it's just because it's thin and light, and it's cool, and it's fun, and like, I do think it's interesting that there's a rational part of our brains that is like, I need to get the most bang for my buck. And for a lot of people, that's how computers are. I want to get the most bang for my buck. But I do think there is also this part of like, I want something cool. I want something nice. With the iPhone Air, it's something nice. Like the thinness, the lightness, this makes this feel like it's from the future in a way that I think is distinct from the MacBook Neo, which is interesting because it is not better. It is not better than the computer that a lot of people who are using it, including myself, already have. And I just think it's a strange little thing about being human, right? I think it also speaks to potentially the idea that our computers, for the most part, whether they're on our lap, in our desktop, or in our pocket, they're better than they need to be for the vast majority of things. And so, yeah, I think that we can take a hit on a lot of the things that we've always obsessed over and still be totally fine, it turns out. So obviously computers will keep getting faster. We'll find new ways to use that speed. And like I said, I am running into limits with the MacBook Neo that make it a little more painful to use than a higher end computer. But yeah, just an interesting little thing, a little interesting little thing to think about. Also, last thing before we go, I've seen a couple snarky comments about how tech commentators and YouTubers, like myself, complained about 8 gigabytes of RAM in MacBooks before, and now there's this new MacBook that has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and everybody's like, oh, it's the greatest computer ever made. I would say the important thing about that they leave out is the fact that it was 8 gigabytes of RAM in a premium computer. In a $1,000, $2,000 computer, it was ridiculous to have 8 gigabytes of RAM because you did run into these walls that you shouldn't run into when you're spending that much money on a computer. When the cost of the computer goes down to $600, though, the math changes, right? We understand there have to be sacrifices made, and I think it makes more sense in this body. I am also very much hoping that the rumors are true, and we will get a follow-up to this next spring with the A19 Pro processor, which will bring 12 gigabytes of RAM, which I honestly think will loosen this up really nicely, just being more practical for folks. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But yeah, just whenever someone's like, you used to say 8 gigabytes wasn't enough, and now you're saying it's fine. Remember, the second part of that was 8 gigabytes was not enough in a premium top-of-the-line computer line like Apple's MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros are. On a more budget computer, things can be sacrificed. We're okay with that. So that's it for me today. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.